All right, welcome everybody to What to Stream, another edition. We have Rama and the beautiful Morgan here. We're going to be talking about new movies or TV series that are out this week, and we're also covering something you might have missed, and also maybe some classics that just hit streaming platforms this month. So, who wants to start first? Raise your hand.
So I actually just finished watching this movie 30 minutes ago and I absolutely loved it. It's called Max Richter's Sleep. And this film is going to be streaming exclusively on Mubi this Friday. And it's incredible. I don't know if are familiar with this composer, Max Richter. I'm sure, I mean, you've seen the movies, I'm sure, Ad Astra, Arrival, Shutter Island. He's done a ton of work with these amazing filmmakers. And he put out an album a couple years ago called Sleep. And it's an 8-hour long album. And the documentary is so impressive because he had this idea with his creative partner to bring the album and create a live show around it and bring it to downtown LA, the Grand Park area, and have people come at, I want to say maybe 7 o'clock at night, stay for the entire 8 hours while he performed it live with an orchestra. Wow. And they were just fully immersed in this album. Like, he plays live, the piano, there's a string quartet, and it's just the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And this documentary, Max Richter's Sleep, chronicles that one show in LA, but also kind of goes back into the origin story of how he created Sleep. It interviews some of the people that were at the show and just how it has profoundly impacted their lives. And we kind of hear some of their personal stories of just how music can, I don't know, change your life and how it just transcends all these experiences. And it's the most beautiful thing I've seen in a really long time. And as you know, if you've watched the show, for those at home, I do like to talk about a lot of composers and just their work. And I really appreciate a good music documentary. And this is one of the most incredible things I've seen in that realm. So wow. I highly recommend that. Yeah, Mubi this Friday.
For music lovers.
For music lovers, yes, exactly.
I love your passion about music. I kind of reminds me of that movie August Rush with Robin Williams. There's all musicians.
Oh,
Remember
yeah.
that Juilliard artist and the Prodigy. But anyway, that's not the documentary, but I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Morgan. And for my new release Friday is Sky Rojo. It's this new series on Netflix from Spain, brought to you by the same guys who gave us Money Heist. But Sky Rojo is a different beast. It takes the style and the tone kind of takes after from Quentin Tarantino or Robert Rodriguez's crime thrillers. And it's a stylized, pulpy, irreverent crime action drama that doesn't pull its punches in terms of sex and violence. So the story is about these 3 sex workers or prostitutes at a club, and an incident happens that forces them to go on the run, and they're being chased by their pimp's henchmen. Apparently, one of the actresses is a famous singer from Argentina. So when I posted the review on social media, her fans like retweeted it like crazy, which I loved. Generally, girl power themes or female empowerment in stories would distance itself from the oldest profession on earth because of the stigmas associated with it. But Sky Rojo, on the other hand, kind of puts them front and center unabashedly. And these women never venture into the Mary Sue territory. They don't always know what they're doing. They go through one chaotic mess after another. Their journey seems bleak. They barely keep it together, but you keep rooting for them because they are the epitome of underdogs. So the flashbacks and the backstories kind of slow things down too much for me, but it never gets to the point where it annoys me or irritates me. Overall, it's a vivid, fearless storytelling with eye-catching cinematography and a few interesting neon-drenched set design. And lastly, I don't think Sky Rojo intends to demonize sex work. I think, I mean, if anything, it speaks more to the predatory men than it is to the women who don't have any other means to make a living. It's a story about friendship, story about love affair, about payback. It's fierce, it's addictive, it's bloody great. It comes out this Friday on Netflix. I watch it on with subtitles because I can't speak Spanish, of course.
Yeah, if you're Latin American from here, you have to. I do subtitles because sometimes you can't understand the Spaniards.
Oh, it's
You
a
know.
different kind of Spanish language, right?
Yeah, it's a different kind of Spanish, different words sometimes, and just the dialect. So I have to put subtitles on too sometimes. I mean, it depends. That's the same for any other country. Like Chileans, they swallow their words. You're like, what? My coworker, I was like, what did you just say?
I had to put subtitles on The Lighthouse when I saw it because
Oh, right.
it's English, but just the accents were
Yes, me too. I did that
right.
too.
I think I turned it off because of that, because I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, subtitles made so much sense with the subtitles. So maybe worth a second watch, but yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to be talking about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I can't speak today. Coming to Disney Plus on March 19, and of course we all know that our beloved Avengers, Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson, the Falcon, and Sebastian Stan as the Winter Soldier, Bucky. And I watched the first episode, and the opening sequence, wow, it was mind-blowing. I watched it 3 times because it's skydiving, and I was trying to watch if it was practical, like they were actually skydiving, or effects, because it was just awesome. They're going through canyons, and Falcon is flying through, and he has helicopters, and you got these guys on these sky suits with wings, so they're maneuvering. I was like, it was just really awesome. But then it becomes a kind of a downer. Basically, we're going to get a lot of the personal background for these characters, and they're reeling from the blip. The 3 amigos are broken up. Steve Rogers has retired. He's in love. So they're on their own, and they're basically sort of lost. And that's interesting. So you see Sam return to his family home, and his sister's going through some financial troubles. And then he goes to a bank, and you find out like he really, apart from being an Avenger, he has no worth. Like, wow, like, oh, like once he's grounded, it's like, it's over. He has no means. And Steve Rogers, who was a good friend of him, it seems like they've lost their guide. And same thing with Bucky. He's trying to make amends for his past. And so it's hard for him because he knows what he's done, his killer past. So he's going to see a shrink. So he's trying to work it out and trying to make amends with some of the people that he wronged, or the families. So it's pretty, I mean, you start out on the high, but then you kind of get really grounded, and you really start to know these guys, and you really feel bad for these people because, yeah, they're superheroes, but I mean, they're just as lost as anybody, especially post blip. There's some hints in there what's to come. They say that our enemies are not our allies, are now our enemies, and so forth. And so it's a really interesting, they drop a lot of clues in there. And you do see the villains, but you have no idea what the story is. You don't see Zemo, who's played by Daniel Broom. He was the one of the villains in, which was it, the Black Cat? No.
Civil War, I believe.
Civil War? No, not Civil War. The one after that.
Winter Soldier, Civil War.
Well, anyway, he was the one that framed Bucky,
Okay,
the Winter Soldier. But yeah, Civil War. It was Civil War because they were fighting over Bucky.
that's right.
So he resumes that he's not in the first episode. There is a surprise cameo. I'm not going to ruin it. So keep an eye out for that. Yeah, so I think fans, will get a real good high at the beginning, and then kind of get grounded because they have to find. I mean, most people want to know about these characters, and they said during the press conference it's pretty much a 6-hour movie. So you're going to get a progression. It's not like WandaVision where it's sort of like chapters. So it's a different animal than WandaVision. So it's kind of like it takes you out a little bit, but it's closer to what you expect from Marvel. So definitely for those people from WandaVision who felt a little disconnected because of the format, and this one is total Marvel world. So I think you'll see a shift, but it's not as there's not much mystery as there was with WandaVision. I mean, there is, but not as much as WandaVision. Like every single shot in WandaVision, there was like, okay, what does that mean? Okay, what does that mean? So here there's a little less of that, so you can watch it a little more relaxed. So
yeah, not as much to dissect probably.
Yeah, because WandaVision was just way too much to take in. I would watch it 3 times just to get everything, because everything was an innuendo, or a red herring or something. So here you can relax a little more. Yeah. So this one's a little bit of a break.
Yeah, I saw that too, and I mean, you're right. It's very grounded. I mean, it starts off really, really strong, and it's just like, whoa, it's very human now. So I like that though.
Yeah,
I think I don't think it would be fair to us for us to ask like, is it gonna be able to top WandaVision? I think
yeah,
Falcon and Winter Soldier is gonna do their own thing.
yeah. Totally different shows.
Yeah,
Anybody see Justice League?
I did.
No.
And I'm
Loved it.
curious. You loved it? All right.
Yes.
I'll spend the 4 hours then.
It was amazing.
How long
I'm
is it?
keeping 4 hours, four and a
And
half,
it's
4 hours.
4 hours.
it's 4 hours long.
Yeah,
Ooh.
straight up.
Yeah, I'm keeping my expectations low because, well, I'm keeping them low. Going in. So
Maybe
I don't
that
know if
can
the
be
audience
your
out there.
review next week. You can let us know what you thought.
I'll see if
Yeah.
it's in the what you missed or what I missed.
Yeah, if it's worthy of that spot.
Yeah.
Speaking of, yeah, so I watched a short film that actually came out last Friday called The Human Voice, and it is directed by Pedro Almodovar and starring Tilda Swinton. And yeah, short film, 30 minutes. I think it's still playing at the Vineland Drive-In movie theater if anyone is interested in catching it. This is essentially just Tilda Swinton being the best Tilda Swinton she could possibly be for 30 minutes. It's so great. And the film basically centers around her. And you can tell she's upset. The first shot is her at a hardware store buying an axe. And so you're like, oh, okay, well, something's up. She comes back to her flat and she just starts kind of going a little bit insane. She starts to unravel. She gets a phone call from, we later find out is her lover, who they're essentially estranged. You never hear his voice. This is all just Tilda Swinton. And the story is her on the end of a breakup and the length that she goes to kind of prove her point and twist the knife a little bit further into his heart at the very end. It is an incredible film for 30 minutes. Yeah, it tells a full story. Tilda Swinton is great, of course. She's just so dramatic. The costumes are incredible. I mean, if you've seen any other Pedro Almodovar films,
Yes.
like In Glory and Volver, you know that the set design is something that he takes very seriously, and it's so colorful and it's so bright. And I mean, I just wish he could come and decorate my own house. Like it's so, you want to just take stills and frame these just images from the set. Very incredible. And last thing I will say, there's a dog in the movie that just takes better direction than I've seen most actors take. This dog is so great. Just the reaction, the movements, the walk, it just is so funny that this is an actual dog playing against Tilda, and they work well. And I mean, maybe for that alone, that's worth watching, but this movie is really great. And yeah, The Human Voice, it's playing Vineland Drive-In. I would imagine it would make its way to streaming at some point, but I think it's probably just in drive-in theaters right now.
I love Pedro. I love his movies with Penelope Cruz. All his movies are just amazing. Such a great filmmaker.
Yeah. Oh, his style too is so distinctive too. Like you just can turn it on and you see these bright colors and just the most beautiful curated shots. And that's exactly what this is here. Yeah.
But what's he doing? What was he doing with short films instead of full-on feature? I'm confused.
Yeah, I don't know. This definitely could have been a full length and I would have absolutely loved it. But maybe he didn't want to stretch out this storyline too much and dilute it. So it is compact, but nothing feels rushed either. So I think he just had this idea and then I'm not sure really the genesis of why he made this. Maybe time, money, something.
Probably.
But yeah, worth checking out for sure.
I definitely will. Big Pedro fan.
Nice. Yay.
All right. So thank you, Morgan. For me, something you may have missed. It's a Netflix reality series called Buried by the Bernards. I don't know if you heard about this. It's a reality series on Netflix about this funeral service home in Memphis, Tennessee. I've been to Memphis many times, by the way. Went to Graceland a couple of times. I'm a huge Elvis fan. So the show centers around this Bernard family, this family-owned business. The dad, the grandmother, mother, the dad's two grown daughters, and the eccentric uncle named Kev, and they are just funny. And I appreciate that they don't try too hard to be funny. They're just, them being them. Of course, although when it comes to reality series, you got to be skeptical, because even though they said, oh, it's unscripted, you know that some things have to be manufactured in order to make
Yeah.
the plot interesting and
Mhm.
worth watching. But it just comes off organic and genuine on this one. And this is not some funeral service home that's been around for decades or passed down from generation to generation. It's fairly new, like a few years old. So while they do have a full knowledge of the business, sometimes some things are not necessarily run like a well-oiled machine, especially when most of their staff are hired solely based on nepotism instead of qualifications. So that's the dynamic that consistently keeps getting activated from one episode to the next. This friction between seeing this business as a potential future or as just a stepping stone for another different future. The Bernards are quirky, and they give out such positive vibe that by the end of it, you're gonna be begging for season two. Whether or not that's gonna happen, of course, that'll be up to Netflix. So this came out, I think, last month. So this is something that if you have missed out on this, please go check it out, and you're gonna get hooked. Trust me.
Is it an American production or?
Yeah, it's American production.
Oh,
They're
okay.
located in Memphis, Tennessee. So I need to visit this place the next time I'm back there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the plot sounds like something out of Europe or something.
And
Yeah, true.
if you like movies like Death at a Funeral, that kind of this kind of stuff resonates with you.
Wow.
Like dark humor.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess I'm next. Okay, today I'm talking Nomadland. It received 6 Oscar nominations. It's playing on Hulu, so I thought, more people should be able to watch it. And if you don't know the plot yet, it stars Frances McDormand, who also received a nomination for her role. And it's it's adapted from a book. A journalist went on the road and met all these people who live in vans. They're modern day nomads. And this is a lifestyle. I didn't know that. I thought it was a choice, or not a choice, but kind of a last resort when you've lost everything. Like the character Frances McDormand plays, Fern. She lost her husband. The town has gone belly up because the major companies have left, and so she decides to hit the road. But she's sort of an odd character because she doesn't want any help from family, friends, or strangers. For example, she's in her van when it's freezing cold outside, and a stranger says, "Hey, there's a shelter, shouldn't be in your van." She's like, "Oh, I'll manage. Don't worry, don't worry." So she's kind of a bit of an odd character. So you don't feel totally in despair for her because she has no home. She refuses help.
Mhm.
So she almost prefers to live freely. She doesn't want to depend on anybody. She travels around the American West, going from seasonal job to seasonal job. So at one point, she's working at an Amazon warehouse. So I guess that's the thing. These nomads, they know where the jobs are at seasonally. So they just travel all around. And that's basically her story. And you meet some of the real life people from the book, and they're telling their personal stories to her. And it's really quite sad. But like I said, some people make the choice to live like this. So it's an interesting lifestyle. And that in itself is what's interesting about it. Is not just this woman, oh, poor woman living in the van, this homeless person, but it's these people who choose to hit the road for one reason or another. There's some people who couldn't live in like a house. They retire, they can't afford to live in a house, and so they need to be on the road, living in these vans. And it's and the way they frame it, the cinematography is just beautiful. I mean, American West is beautiful, but the way they frame it here, it's a little not depressing, but it's a little bit of a downer. So it kind of fits the mood. It's not all nice, all beauty. You go to camps where you see these other people who camp out, and they form this little community. So they do form a community, and they know each other because they meet up from season to season. So it's a really interesting. I thought reading the synopsis, I'm like, I don't know, it's gonna be kind of a depressing movie, but it's really interesting how these people choose to live. And how and why a van, versus some people are in RVs, but yeah, it's a really interesting portrayal, and Frances McDormand, of course, is great. Yeah, so I recommend it to people. I've seen a few comments here and there that they weren't in, some people weren't into this movie. So yeah, it's not that kind of a movie, but it's just interesting to see a different lifestyle and why people choose to live this way. So I thought that was really interesting.
I really liked it. I watched it last year, and it like you said, it's kind of sad and depressing. And also it's a bit of a slow burn, so it
Yeah.
requires your patience to watch this movie. But it is beautiful, and
Mhm.
I don't know if the movie intends it purposely, but underlying theme to me, it speaks about the failure of our economy, kind of like the Florida Project. Remember that with that movie
Yeah.
with what's his name, Willem Dafoe, that also speaks about poverty in America, even though it doesn't really say it out loud like that. But that's what Nomadland, says to me, at least. Like,
Oh yeah,
man,
yeah. It totally talks about how how seniors, we just discard them.
yeah, exactly.
That we don't look after them. They've worked all these years, and then you retire, and then there's
No
nobody's
savings.
taking care of you. Yeah, no, especially if you've always worked for minimum wage. You can't save when you work minimum wage. So yeah, there's a lot of social commentary underneath it. So it's like we just don't take care of our elderly,
Agreed.
because a lot of people we meet are elderly, right, Rama?
Yep. And I hope it sparks conversation, because it's a very powerful film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say there is a panel at South by Southwest going on right now that Bob Wells, I believe his name, is one of the main characters.
Mhm.
He's speaking about his life as a nomad. And I haven't gone to the panel, but I have it reserved. So I think I'm going to try and check it out tomorrow. But it was so interesting. Yeah, that this is a lifestyle and a choice in a way to live that way. And yeah, fascinating, very eye-opening for sure.
Yeah, there's part of an attraction I could see, because my husband and I talk about when we retire, we're going to rent an RV and travel the United States because we like to travel.
Aw.
But then you see this and you're like, oh man, that's
It's
maybe
discouraging.
not.
Yeah, good in theory, but we'll see.
But if Chloe Zhao is the director, and she's up for Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Picture,
Well deserved.
and if she wins, she'll be the second woman to win an Oscar and the first person of color to win in the Best Director category. So we're rooting for her.
Wow.
Yes.
And I mean, she's one to watch for. I read somewhere that The Eternals, the Marvel movie that she's directing with Angelina Jolie, Salma Hayek, and a bunch of other people, that it is just beyond good. That her work on that was just spectacular. So I'm really excited to see what she does with a superhero movie, going from one opposite end to another. So I'm really excited about her. And she just seems so like, she doesn't care for any of the BS Hollywood stuff. She's a filmmaker at heart, so I really like that about her.
So many good movies. Okay, so my personal recommendation for this week is a movie called Like Crazy, and it is directed by Drake Doremus and stars Anton Yelchin. And it was Anton's birthday last week. I think it was last Thursday, March 11th. Yeah, and his loss was really, really hard to comprehend. And this movie in particular, when I watched it for the very first time, just opened my eyes to the impact of what a really good film can do. And it was so heartbreaking, so emotionally just vulnerable. And basically it tells the story of a British college student who falls for an American college student while she's abroad here. And her visa runs out and she's banned from the US. And it's the story of, will their love be strong enough to keep them together even when they're on opposite sides of the world? And it's a really heartbreaking film. It's a love story. It's also, drama. And it's a really, really good movie. It's playing on Amazon Prime and Hulu right now. And a side note, fantastic kind of follow-up companion piece is this other film called Love Antosha, which is a documentary about Anton, and it talks about Like Crazy a lot. And yeah, it's a tough one to watch, especially knowing kind of the talent that we lost when Anton passed away, but it's worth rewatching and watching for the first time if anyone hasn't seen it yet.
Yeah, such a tragedy. I saw that too. It was heartbreaking.
Oh yeah.
It was so full of life. since he was a kid, you know?
Yeah, and so
All he wanted to do was
smart.
acting. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I love that movie like crazy. That was with Felicity Jones, right?
Yes, Felicity
Yes,
Jones
yes,
in it.
yeah, I remember now.
Mm.
Thank you, Morgan. And my personal recommendation, as you know, I'm Asian, and unfortunately, there has been a spike or increase of crime against Asians or Asian American communities across the country. So my personal recommendation is Eddie Huang's feature directorial debut, Boogie, which is coming to digital and on demand starting Friday, March 26th. Look, Raya gives us this magical, fantastical adventure, right? And then To All the Boys I've Loved Before franchise with Lana Condor allows Asian American to be the lead in a Hollywood rom-com. Both films are great, but Boogie gives you a look at what's on the ground. It's a coming of age story about Boogie Chin, a basketball phenom from Queens, New York, who dreams of playing for the NBA. His parents pressure him to earn scholarship, but Boogie is also navigating his new girlfriend, on-court rivals, and the burden of expectations being part of Asian culture. And so again, this is Eddie Huang's first directorial film. Eddie Huang is a famous restaurant owner. Um, so the movie can get clunky at times. You know, he's still trying to find his way through this whole thing. But the story does speak a lot of truth to the day-to-day life of second Asian American generation. The humor can be a bit crude, but it goes with the fact that the character Boogie is flawed, and that's okay. You know, he's a softie with, you know, kind of like rough around the edges, if you will. Boogie is not earth-shattering film, but its well-intentioned theme comes from a good place, and it can resonate with younger audiences who may not yet have a clear view of what their future holds. And I think in these times of hostility towards Asian Americans, perhaps if more people see a film like this and understand life from our perspective, then maybe they wouldn't be so judgmental and reactionary. Hashtag stop Asian hate.
We're all the same people.
Yeah.
We're
Well
all,
said.
we have blood running through our veins.
Hmm.
Ah, such a sad time. I know. I really felt that incident from yesterday. Terrible.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
Okay, so I have another classic I'd like to recommend. It's called Heathers. It's a 1989 film with Winona Ryder. This kind of was a breakthrough for Christian Slater. And it's basically your Mean Girls, but morbid. And funny enough, Heathers was supposed to be a Paramount TV series, but they scrapped it because of the whole kind of plot of the movie. And so here I'm gonna tell you about the plot. So basically, Ryder plays Veronica. She's part of a clique. She joins a clique of Heathers, and these are the popular girls. And ironically, all the three girls are named Heather. So hence the name Heathers. That's where that name comes from. And so one day this boy shows up, it's Christian Slater. He's a new kid in school, and she's immediately attracted to him. He's kind of a rebel. Of course, everyone said he kind of reminded them of Jack Nicholson. He was doing a Jack Nicholson impression, basically. So he's kind of that rebel looking kid. And they turn to, because he does not like popular kids, they turn to murder and frame it as a suicide. So it's very morbid. But just the dialogue in it, it's just it's obviously, it's funny. I mean, I don't know how it would play these days, because of the whole situation that's going on now. But for back then, it was quite a breakthrough of a film. I would say, like, if I dare say, kind of like the Quentin Tarantino early films, how they used to kind of talk to each other and rhyme, and just this is what Heathers was doing at the time, because the dialogue was just so on point. And I think there's some quotes from the movie that are still in pop culture. So if you like Mean Girls, here's kind of a precursor to that. And that was Heathers. It's playing on Hulu right now. Actually, that's where I saw it. And I was like, oh, I haven't watched it since the last time, since the 80s probably. So I want to watch it just to see how it holds up. But I remember it when it came out that it was pretty progressive in the terms of just dialogue, because they get very creative, especially with the suicide notes. They're trying to frame the murders as suicide. And so it was bizarre, but it was always like intriguing too, just how they did that, and how much of a cult favorite it has become through the years. It wasn't a hit right away. I think over the time, it kind of became kind of like a cult hit. So that's my classic film for the week.
Nice.
I haven't seen Heather, so I have to check.
No?
Yeah,
Yeah, check it out on Hulu. It's interesting. I mean,
I missed out on that.
yeah, Christian Slater, definitely that movie. he just stood out.
It's a classic, so I need to check that out, definitely.
And then I wanted to mention to you, Rama, I saw Boss Level the other day, finally.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. It was a
great.
retread of the genre, but they had so much fun with it. I always enjoy Frank Grillo when he's in the lead position. He is always so much fun, and he just brought so much humor. And I joked on Twitter, but the first 5 minutes, I think they're in the world Guinness record for most violent sequences in under 5 minutes.
Joe Carnahan, right? Joe Carnahan.
Joe Carnahan, he's crazy. If you haven't seen Smoking Aces, you got to watch Smoking Aces. The action is just crazy. I mean, this guy loves action, and he does it really, really well. And it's just laughable. You're laughing with it, not at it. But it's just so ridiculous, and he knows just how to play it. I really enjoyed it. Somebody else said like I was okay. I was like, it was so much fun.
It was fun.
I really enjoyed it. So, but yeah, it's a retread of all these, the time loop genre, but they just had so much fun with it. So that's another one of my recommendations. All right, those are our personal recommendations for the week. Join us every week on Thursday, 11 a.m. on YouTube to watch a new episode of What to Stream. Thanks for joining us. And if you want to give your recommendations, please post it in the comments. Let us know what you want us to watch to see what we thought about it, or any of your personal recommendations. Until then, bye, Morgan. Bye, Rama.
Bye.
Bye.
See you next week.
See you next week.